Welcome to the good news feed. I'm always in my kitchen, so I'm going to feed you the good news. So the good news comes all the way from New York. Okay, listen, I'm excited about the guest today because she also has a very special guest. Let's welcome Mrs. Allie and Arlo.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for joining us. Oh, don't be shy, buddy. You are my special guest, and I know that you have a lot to say.
Well, Arlo, what did we do recently? Where did we go?
To the protest.
We went to the protest. And why did we go to the protest?
Because of equal rights.
For equal rights. And what were some of the things we were saying at the protest?
No police.
Well, no justice, no peace. And then we said no racist police. Arlo thought we were chanting at one point, no justice, no police. So, you know, what's going to happen down the road with that. But it was really important for me as a parent, as a white parent of a white male, for him to know what's going on in the world and for him to care about it. And what did we put out in our front lawn together?
A grass sign.
What's it say?
Black Lives Matter.
And who do we want to see that sign?
The bad police.
The police officers that do things that they shouldn't do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could grab, maybe somehow we can make them watch the Black Lives Matter sign.
Yeah, I think that the more that we stand up for what we believe in, the more of a difference that we can make. And all the people in our neighborhood can see that. Because we don't live in the most like-minded neighborhood necessarily. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that our neighbors know where we stand. Because we know where some of them stand, and
yeah, right. How about that?
It's clear. We know where we stand.
Yeah.
As the parent of a white male, I want him to understand his place in our society.
Right.
I want him to understand the privilege that he has being a white male and what that means and what he can do about that to hopefully one day make things truly equal for Black and brown people in our country.
Yeah, and that's important because some people look at having privilege as only for themselves from a selfish perspective, and it sounds like you want him to use the privilege to be able to impact the lives of others, not just his own.
Absolutely.
How old is Arlo?
How old are you?
4.
Arlo, you're smarter than most adults.
Are you smarter than most?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have a show called Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? We need, are you smarter than Arlo? And Arlo's going to say, no way. No way. Well, Arlo, we thank you for your advocacy. That's a big word.
You're still silly?
Yeah.
Serious silly.
That's quite all right, because you're still 4. You're still 4. So, Allie, you have a varied background. You teach, you're a mom, you're a wife, you've been a coach. One of the things you shared with me earlier is that in teaching writing and reading, you give your students a wide variety of books to read. Tell us what your inspiration is for that, diversifying the reading material.
Well, I feel that I'm very lucky as a white woman in this world who is able to kind of come of age and come into adulthood with a unique perspective. You know, we taught together at a school where all of the students were Black, and there weren't as many white educators. And I was young, I was 22. Didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't even there as a teacher. I was there as a coach, but ended up taking on the role as the PE teacher. Mm-hmm. You do what you got to do.
Right.
And my eyes were opened. I thought that I thought that I could go into a school with all Black children and connect with them. And I thought that I would be able to be seen as being on the same level just because of, everyone's been through things in their life. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, well, I've been through something. So I get you, you get me. But I had no idea before that what it really meant to be Black in America. Mm-hmm. And especially what it meant to be Black and poor in America, which so many of our students were. Yeah. And they changed me. They changed the way I saw myself, mm-hmm. the way that I saw race and color in America. Mm-hmm. I think before that, I had a good Black friend in college who told me that he's like, you're colorblind, I can tell. And I was like, I've never heard that term before. I'd never heard it before. But I was like, I guess so, because I don't take the color of someone's skin into consideration when I think of them as a person, And I think that's the way that a lot of us were raised. Of to be a good person, you don't judge someone by their skin color. But when you're saying that that's who you are and that's how you live, you're completely ignoring what is actually someone's life. Mm-hmm. You're ignoring what it means to be Black, to be Hispanic, to be a woman, to be anything. If you say, well, I don't see that, all I see is a person.
Right.
And I think that's a lot easier, and it's easy to be ignorant of that, and it's easy to think of yourself as a good person if you're like that, but you're not seeing the whole person. And when I first started working in schools with children who did not look like me, it allowed me to really see the whole person and the whole story.
Right.
I've been so lucky to have so many diverse colleagues over the years, so that I've learned from, so many diverse leaders that have taught me, and it becomes such a part of who you are when you see injustice. When I take a group of kids to the rec center down the street for a PE class, and you see the way that people look at a group of brown and Black children, and it's different than the way they look at a group of white children. Mm-hmm. You see just the way that people are regarded so differently. I remember the first time I had a friend, Brad, in DC. We were going to Adams Morgan, and we were going to hail a cab, and I was like, Brad, go hail a cab, and he's like, wow, you need to hail the cab. And that was another one of those moments where you don't know until it's brought to your awareness.
Right, it's right in front of your face.
Exactly. And then as an educator, you start to realize all of the literature that our children are exposed to, or most of the literature our children are exposed to, is written by white men and white women. And that's it. And that hasn't changed. When I was an English major at NYU, the bulk of the stories in my English 101 class were written by white men, white European men who, a lot of them were racist, a lot of them were sexist, but we're still reading their stories. When I started teaching at the college level and had control of my curriculum, I knew I had the power to change that.
Amen.
I knew how much of an importance it was for people of all ages to be able to see themselves and to be able to see stories or read stories of people that they are completely clueless about. I designed my curriculum to be full of immigration stories. So both literature and personal stories about immigration into our country and to other countries from all over the world. So that my students, every story they read was a different background, was a different voice. Mm-hmm. When I first designed the curriculum, it was shortly after we found out that families were being held in cages and separated. And so, you know, if you really want to try to make a change, educating the youth and educating the people coming up after us, I think, is one of the ways to do that, and allowing all students to see themselves represented in the literature they were reading, as well as perspectives that they would otherwise never be exposed to.
And it's important. And I think I know as teachers, our platform is so important because we're in front of the next generation, the next group of leaders regularly.
Yeah.
And how that information is presented can either help or harm.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that you decided to take that leap of faith to say, look, I have control. I have some input. I'm going to do what I believe is best for the world even.
Yeah.
You don't know where your students are going to go and whose lives they're going to touch, because we don't know what the future may bring. So you can only deal with the right now and to help be a part of that change in that moment. So that kind of answers my next question on what do you think, or what would be some words of wisdom for others who don't know what to do in the fight against inequality, injustices during the Black Lives Matter, because you've done the processing, you've taken charge of your lawn and making your lawn speak for itself. You teach, so those are 3 different ways. But have you seen any other creative ways that others that you know, maybe not in your hometown, maybe not in New York, but that you've read about to help others get involved in making the world better for both Arlo and my son, BB?
Oh, I love BB. So book clubs. There's a lot of book clubs with a focus on reading both authors that are a diverse group of authors, and also just by reading books that are actually like White Fragility, How to Be an Anti-Racist, like reading books to educate and talking about it with other people, especially if you're white and you're feeling like compelled to make a change and not just to be part of a fad. It's a fear of it being a fad,
right,
based on some things I've seen and heard. But really knowing that this is the next important, like the most important issue in our country right now.
Right.
And it has been for a long time, but it's secretly been like, it hasn't been as committed to as this for so long, especially by white people. Like now the white community is mobilized. And I think I've seen book clubs. I've started one with a few friends who haven't had these same experiences as I've had.
Okay.
Different Facebook groups popping up where parents and people can go on and to ask questions. Because one thing I hear is like a lot of white people saying is like, well, I don't know what I can do and I don't know who to ask because I'm told I shouldn't ask Black people. And it's like, well, no, it's not their responsibility to educate you, you know? Like there's so much out there, so many movies you can watch, so many different things that you can read. I know I watched 13th recently, and then it said in our prisons, there's the people working with prisoners are like people you wouldn't want working with your family often, and it should be social workers, it should be teachers in our prisons. And like, that's right, I'm going to apply right now a position. And I think, I laugh about that because, you know, I'm 5'3", not a very intimidating presence.
Like, oh, she's adorable.
But I think like if we really did start to say like, how can we revamp the system? Because it needs to be revamped. It's so clear it needs to be revamped. Go to meetings about the city budget. We've had meetings recently in Beacon. 25% of our budget goes to the police department. 25% of our city budget goes to the police department, which is insane. Like, hear that and demand a change. Put that money into schools. Put that money into social work, into housing, and I think if you're a parent at a school, go to school board meetings, demand that there is in our curriculum that children are actually taught about the truth of our history, that we have Black history as a required class in all public schools, that it's built into our curriculum from when children are Arlo's age and younger.
Yeah.
I think that people being encouraged to read and talk is really important. Because it's when you get so uncomfortable about talking that you close the door and that you say being colorblind is the answer. It's when people get uncomfortable with the fact that they're white talking about Black lives. And unfortunately for a lot of people, it's saying, like, for the people who really are that uncomfortable, or who say that there is no white privilege, it's kind of like closing the door after you've made an attempt to educate certain people. It's hard, but sometimes you have to kind of cut ties and make sure the person knows why. Like, I've lost in the past month. I've had more Facebook friends suddenly deleted me.
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah. And I think it goes to show how uncomfortable some people are, and how they are, the racist tendencies you've seen from them, or the racist comments they've said, go deeper than a comment and go deeper than a level of ignorance. And that it's really sad that that's the state our country's in. But yeah, and art, like, look for art by Black artists. I think supporting Black-owned businesses is huge and really important right now. To show support as a white person. But yeah, I think that there's a lot that we can do to really push the next phase. I mean, I'm in support of reparations, but that's going to take a whole overhaul of the government, because I think that that's what's actually equitable. Black poverty doesn't exist in our country because of laziness. It exists because, which is what so many people believe.
Wow, yeah, that's been a statement that's been used too many times.
And it's sickening. It's sickening, and like, and it's always said by people who don't have any experience in the Black community.
Yeah.
Because once you
twice as hard, sometimes 3 times as hard, and still get paid less.
Shoot. For real. And it's a matter of, like, this is the way our system was rigged. And it really does, I think we really do need government to take responsibility and make things actually equitable. Because that's never happened from the moment that slaves were freed. And I was having a conversation with somebody who was adamant about Juneteenth not being a holiday. I'm like, what? Why are you so adamant about this? When they're like, well, I just heard of it. I'm like, well, because you're white. You've never heard of it. Like, I mean,
that's the answer.
It's too close to the 4th of July. Why can't we both them together? I'm like, because the 4th of July is when white people gained their independence from Britain.
Yeah, while slavery was still going on.
Exactly. And so it's so, it's a level of ignorance and pride. And I really think that in order for things to truly change, it needs to be what some would say is radical. But what others would say is what's actually fair and what should have happened 155 years ago, but didn't.
And so here we are. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. As I end every show, I want to make sure I capture some key points. If I missed anything, let me know. So if I were to put words into your mouth, go beyond the fad, read literature about yourself to become an anti-racist if you didn't know you were racist, or just find a way to be an advocate, and then educate others and act in your own community while supporting Black businesses and being more, not even more sensitive, but just being more aware in a way that does not neglect the fact that there is a movement going on. That's about right?
That's about right. And educate your kids. Have the conversations around them. You know, Arlo's been here the whole time, and it's not something to say it's not something to say behind closed doors. You know, it's something that we should be talking about with and in front of our children. Have them ask questions. I just think it's incredibly important because they're our future, and things need to change. And
what better way to start than with the children?
Yeah.
How about that? Absolutely. Well, we thank you so much. Arlo, do you have any last words, dear?
Just remember to get a Black Lives Matter sign and put it in your dress.
Oh, thank you, Arlo. You're amazing. Allie, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm always here in my kitchen. Always. I feel like I've been here since March 13th when they spoke. So I'm always in my kitchen giving the good news. This is the Good News Feed. Thank you so much. Many blessings to you. And don't worry about the friends that you lost, because you have so many more
they're not worth it.
Who are friendly to you.
Totally.
We thank you, dear. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.